Pardon? Money is always welcome. Always. And it won't go for beer, okay? Can we have all of the candidates at the front, please? All right, I would like to take just a moment to ask all of you, if you haven't done it already, to please put your cell phones on vibrate or silent. That'll make everything go a whole lot quicker than it is right now. Our Revolution Gulf Coast. Pardon? No. This is being put on by the Our Revolution Gulf Coast chapter, the region, of which Brazoria and Fort Bend counties are chapters. My name is Doug Beaton. I am the delegate from the Fort Bend Our Revolution group. And if you're not familiar with Our Revolution, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce you to it. It was formed in 2017 after the election, specifically by the Bernie Sanders group. It's a 501c4, not a C3, which means that we can endorse, but we can't actively recruit or fundraise for candidates. We can help them. It's a great group. It pushes progressive values all across the table, all the way to the far left of the spectrum. We have a set of core values that went into the establishment of the questionnaire that we sent to the various candidates that we invited to the forum tonight. Those candidates filled it out. They sent it back. The questionnaires were reviewed. They were discussed. They were evaluated. And the 4 attendees here that you see in front right now are those who made the cut. Tonight we'll be voting on endorsing these various candidates, and we hope that we will be able to get some very, very qualified candidates out of Fort Bend and Brazoria counties, in order to more better represent us in the state and at the federal level. Christy Morgan Turner is our candidate, our campaign group leader for Galveston County. She couldn't make it tonight, she's ill. But if there's anyone here from Galveston County, would you raise your hand? Ghost. So I guess that's about it for me. Appreciate it again on behalf of the Our Revolution Brazoria and Fort Bend chapters. And without any more from me, I'd like to introduce you to F.J. Jones, who's representing the Coalition of Black Democrats.
Y'all got to give it up a little better for the Coalition of Black Democrats. All right, my name is F.J. Jones. I am the chair of the Brazoria County, Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. And I'm gonna also say that I'm running for Justice of the Peace in Brazoria County, and when I'm elected, I'll be the first African American ever elected to a county seat in this country. And go to www.justvotejones.com. That's my plug. That's it. But for tonight, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the coalition. It was actually, the state coalition was actually founded in 1979. But Brazoria County chapter was actually founded in 2015. I'm the second chair of Brazoria County, and it has been my pleasure to serve this organization for the last, the dates kind of run together now. I've been doing so much, I don't remember. I think it's been like a year and a half. So it's been a really good ride. And I want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. I see so many faces, but I think we have Fort Bend. We have Fort Bend here. Oh yeah. All right. Any Harris County and Houston people? Fort Bend. Give it up for that. Okay. So tonight is Fort Bend and Brazoria County, and that's all right. That's all right. long, but one of the things I want to do before I step down is that I would like to recognize John Floyd. He's in the house tonight. Candidate 29, and the youngest elected official in the country is here with us tonight. Mr. Mike Floyd. So, if you have any further questions about the Coalition of Black Democrats, you know, we're an organization whose mission it is to elect Black Democrats, to get out the vote for Black Democrats, but we are a very multicultural and diverse organization. The name is Black Democrats, but we welcome everyone to work with us. So just please understand that. Our website is www.BrazoriaBlackDemocrats.com. So if you want more information about us, I'll be around. I'm also doing voter registration tonight, so if there's anybody who just recently moved to Brazoria County or within Brazoria County, I'll be all too happy. Remember, February 5th is the deadline to vote, to get registered to vote in the primary. So without further ado, I'll move on to the next item of the agenda, and I'll turn the program over to Mr. Scott Forbis.
Thank you, Adrienne. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Forbis. I lead the Brazoria County chapter of Our Revolution. Doug already gave you the background on how we got to where we are tonight. I just want to emphasize that if you're an Our Revolution member, oh hi guys, thanks. If you're an Our Revolution member, make sure you got a ballot on your way into the front table. If you didn't get that, you might want to go over there and get one. In addition to the ballot, we have the questionnaires that the candidates answered. We're only going to be asking about 5 questions per candidate tonight, so there's a lot more detail in those questionnaires that'll make your voting more informed. So without further ado, we're going to start with introductions. Candidates, you will each get 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Please tell us why you're running, what has prepared you for this moment. When the light in front on this table here turns green, it's time to speak. When it turns yellow, you've got 30 seconds. When it turns red, you need to stop speaking. Okay, Adrienne, we'll start with you.
Good evening, I'm Adrienne Bell, and I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress in Texas District 14. I am a 2nd grade school teacher in Houston ISD, and I'm currently on leave of absence. Oh, you
Yes,
can't
I'll
hear
turn
me?
it on.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
She's louder before.
I can't hear. I think I was just talking. It's on. It says it's on. How about this? Okay. Can you? Now I can. I can hear myself. I'm Adrienne Bell, and I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress in Texas District 14. And I am a 2nd grade school teacher in Houston ISD. And I decided to run because of the national climate that's going on in the political landscape. I am really sick and tired of our rights being taken away from us, and we're getting less and not more. I am an advocate for women's rights. I'm going to stand up and fight real hard that no one takes public education away from us, and that we provide early childhood education for all of our students. I believe that as Americans, and as I grew up, we had the American dream, which was really strong. And when I look at my children who are millennials, they no longer have the same hope in America that I had. But I still believe in America, and I believe we need a Congress that's going to be the voice for the 99%. I think the 1% have already had their voices heard, and they've got all they need. We need to fight for the 99%. So that's why I'm running, so that I can represent the people and represent them well in District 14. I'm Adrienne Bell, candidate U.S. Congress, Texas District 14.
Time to spare. You're going to yield the rest of your time, Madam Congressperson? Good evening. My name is Steve Brown. I am a candidate for Congressional District 22 in Fort Bend County and Brazoria County. Brothers and sisters, you know that there is nothing normal about what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. We have a president who obstructs justice probably on a weekly basis. We have a president who has probably colluded with a foreign adversary. we also have a president whose interest it is to enrich his family and his friends, build his own version of a oligarch system here in America. More importantly, or disturbingly, we have a Congress that appears to be content in being co-conspirators in this plight. Our democracy is dying, but we cannot let that happen. And you know that because you're here tonight, organizing and mobilizing. You are here tonight because you are an act of resistance from this administration and this Congress. And I stand with you, and I hope that you will stand with me in fighting back and pushing back on this administration. Now, I have over 20 years of public policy experience working to fight for Medicaid CHIP in the state, working to grow our public transit system in this region, and working to build the clean energy future of today. In my current business, I'm a small business owner. I develop sustainable energy projects throughout the state. And so I know that what it takes to fight back, or what the skills we need to have a Congress that will fight back. And I'm asking that you join me, because we have a fierce urgency right now to return the House of the people back to the people. And if you would join me in working together to build a working class coalition, that we can win District 22 this November. Thank you.
I promise I won't do this all night, but I'm going to do this to introduce myself. My name is Meghan Scoggins. I'm running for the Texas House of Representatives for District 28, that's the northern portion of Fort Bend County. A little bit about my background. I've actually owned 4 businesses. I retired 3 years ago, having started out my life when I was 22 with 2 babies on welfare. So quite a few things have happened. I got involved in Texas politics in 2009 when I watched them rip the education budget to shreds. I watched what happened to my kids' classrooms. I watched them go from 23 kids one year to 29 kids in the classroom the next year. And I said, hey, wait a minute, I'm not okay with this. So I started showing up to Austin. I started testifying on education. And then I watched what they were doing on women's rights. So I started testifying on bills for women's rights. I've advocated for infrastructure funding, both in my district and out of it. I've testified on bills regarding fair elections and election fraud and voter fraud and gerrymandering. And I've been involved in a lot of these issues for several years. Last year in February, I was getting ready for another trip to Austin. And my then 12-year-old daughter came up to me and she goes, Mom, you heard about this crap called the bathroom bill? And I sat there for a minute and I was wondering, should I be more upset that my daughter knows, just said the word crap without even thinking about it, or that she actually knows what's happening? So I turned to her and I said, sweetheart, what do you know about it? And she looked at me and she goes, fix it, and walked off. And that was the moment that I knew that it was time. I've been talking to legislators for years and they weren't listening. They weren't listening to those police chiefs who came to testify to tell them that SB4 was not going to help their communities. They didn't listen when, school districts came and said, hey, this isn't a problem. However, not having enough textbooks in our classroom is an issue. So I decided that I was going to take my seat in the Texas House of Representatives to listen to what the people needed and to change the priorities of the state. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dylan Forbis, and I'm running for House District 29. 29 years old. I'm 29 years old, and I'm running for 29. And it works, so you won't forget. But what's so important about that is I have about 30 years until I'm seriously looking at being retired. That means I have 3 more redistrictings. That means I have 15 more open sessions. So my time is running out for preparing my future. The time for my parents is already gone. They have 4 years till they retire. And I understand that when it comes down to making this state a better place for all of us, we have to do our job to take care of ourselves. I was a union plumber who was discriminated when I started my transition. And I was taught that when it comes down to it, we have to take care of each other. We have to prepare our future. And we can't just ride this wave. We have to link up our boats, and we have to make the winds. So that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm running. I'm running because I didn't expect to get into politics. But I understand that in order for us to make change, we have to stand up. We have to say, I know what I want to see, and I want to help us get there. My political experience isn't too deep. I didn't, I haven't run for office before, but I have participated in a lot of campaigns. I helped with the HERO campaign because I understood that you need protections for every citizen, and that it's our job to make that happen. I believe that the power belongs to the people, and it doesn't belong to the corporate interests that are currently hemorrhaging the state of Texas. I want to help us keep the competitive edge that we have in the House. I don't want us to lose it, and we're really close to losing it. And I know that a lot of us have had many different experiences in the state, and sometimes we want to believe that things are changing for the better. But if we want to believe it, we have to make it happen. Thank you.
Since each candidate is running in a separate race, we will direct questions to candidates individually. We'll focus on clarifications or expansions of your responses to our questionnaire. There will be 5 rounds of questions, and your responses will be limited to 2 minutes each.
Adrienne, you got the short straw.
I know you're gonna have to go.
You wrote that you would oppose trade agreements that ship jobs overseas. Would you also support legislation that penalizes funneling international corporate profits into tax havens outside the U.S.? And what suggestions would you have for how this could be handled?
I am a supporter of unions, and I'm a supporter of labor. And I think a lot of the jobs that are shipped overseas is to hide a lot of money, for one thing, and to hide a lot of the profit. I want to see Americans with jobs. For instance, in Beaumont, there's a 12% unemployment rate, and it is a city that is full of industry that continues to grow. Yet those who are local residents don't get those good paying jobs because they don't have the training nor the qualifications. So one of my goals in Congress is to have training for them so that they can get those industrial jobs and that they can be able to take care of their families, and we can reduce the unemployment rate in those cities, because most of the households, a lot of the households are single women with children living in poverty. And so if we keep jobs in America, in our areas locally, then we can start to eliminate some of that poverty that's going on in the areas. And if we don't allow people to just put their money overseas and hide it, so that we cannot keep up with where money is or what they're doing, or the actual profits that are being made from these companies. So that's one thing I really want to do, is have training programs so that people can learn those different trade jobs and get those good paying jobs in America.
Steve, you're next. In your answer to our question on Wall Street, you told us that the gross deregulation has and will always lead to working people and their families being taken advantage of. Can you tell us what you would do to make sure that corporations are properly regulated?
Yeah, I think the answer is actually in the question itself, the restoration of Glass-Steagall, and making sure that the co-linking of investment banks and commercial banks does not continue to exist. We've seen every time there has been a weakening of Glass-Steagall, or when we saw the weakening of Glass-Steagall, that's contributed in great deal to the 2006-2007 financial crisis. We cannot allow for our everyday savings to be commingled with some of the risky trades that the investment commercial banks are doing. And that's essentially what happens. They're gambling our money with their risky trades, right? And so one of the things we need to do is restore Glass-Steagall. The second thing we need to do is strengthen Dodd-Frank as well. And it might be a question in the future, but the Inclusive Prosperity Act, which is a bill that's been filed in Congress that I support, would actually put a small minor tax on some of those risky trades. And the resources and the funding that could be appropriated out of that tax could help to do any number of things, whether it's college for all, Medicare for all, job training like Adrienne spoke of. But what we found with the 2006-2007 crisis is that no one ever had to pay the piper. No one ever suffered any consequences. No one ever learned their lessons. And with the Tea Party Republicans in office now, they are only trying to give Wall Street those same freedoms back again, and not allowing us to learn from the mistakes of the past. And so the answer is there. It's already in the question. We know what policies have already worked, and we can build on the policies moving forward. Thank you.
Meghan, you answered no to our question on corporate welfare and indicated that shifting subsidies and tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry to renewable energy must be done incrementally. Given the current profitability of the oil companies, ExxonMobil making about $16 billion per year in profits, why is this important?
That is actually, that's a really tough question. That's something that I personally, grapple with. My district, over half the families in my district are supported by the oil and gas industry. We saw what happened when oil prices went down. We had over 300,000 people in this area that were laid off. We can sit here and talk about oil company profits all day, but oil companies are going to make a profit no matter what. If we cut those tax subsidies immediately, they're going to keep those profits by laying off workers and canceling projects, which could be devastating to the economy actually across the country, not just here in Texas. So we definitely need to shift that to sustainable energy programs, and I think that we can incentivize the companies with those existing companies to do that. I think a lot of those companies are starting to do that organically, which actually does create jobs at a faster rate, but if we just end them, they're gonna cut projects and we're gonna see a downturn in our economy here in Houston, and that's just something I can't let half my district be laid off.
And Dylan, as a supporter of Medicaid expansion in Texas, can you provide specifics on areas where additional health coverage is most needed and also the most glaring health care weaknesses in our state?
Sure. So Medicaid expansion in Texas, it's most necessary. And the people that are most impacted, you're looking at the elderly, you're looking at the disabled, the limited abled. Those are the people that are most impacted. And not only that, but our youth, our low-income youth and our low-income families, single income families. So these are the places, these are the people that are going to be most impacted, most affected. And so the ones that are going to be most impacted are going to be in more rural areas. When you have areas that are more densely populated, like the Houston area, you end up getting a lot of clinics and a lot of public institutions that will kind of bridge the gap when it comes to medical care. But when you're in rural areas, you have people that don't have access to that, especially when you have rural areas and you tend to have a lot of veterans, people that can't get to VAs that are in large areas, large cities. I know that I have a lot of friends that travel all the way from Vidor and Orange, Texas to go to the Houston VA. So these are the people that are going to be most impacted by Medicaid expansion. When you have Medicaid expansion, you have doctors' offices, you have hospitals that are opening in other areas because they have access to funds that are provided through public institutions, and they're able to find the people that fit that need. And then again, you're looking at the elderly, you're looking at the low-income families, you're looking at the youth that don't have health care, you're looking at kids on CHIP, that kind of thing. So I would say, and then what was the last half of that question? Sorry.
That was it. It was one of the most glaring healthcare weaknesses in the state.
Okay, there, thank you.
Adrienne, in your answer on income inequality, you mentioned that a small tax on financial transactions would help pay for student debt relief and assistance to low-income households, among other things. Could you tell us a little bit about what forms that debt relief and assistance would take?
I think one part of it that has been taken away from us for debt relief for students is the income credits that you are able to claim on your income tax. I have student loans. And I know one of the best ways of getting something back that reduced debt, and I'm just talking about that part, is getting those kind of credits back. So I think we just need to, what I see now is instead of a move toward helping reduce, I see more of a attitude of that those that are in the 99%, it's okay. They'll be all right if they don't have anything. And that the wealth is just being increased more by those who have the 1%. And so that's one way that I see to incentivize people, encourage people to become a part of the system of education and not shy away from it. Because there's too many people right now that I know, they refuse to go to school. And we know that education is needed, but they will not go because they cannot carry that crushing debt that we placing on their backs. And so we've got to find a way to take that away so we can get that part of the economy going.
Steve, you told us in your answer on income inequality that Americans prosper when corporations pay their fair share of taxes. What do you think the corporate income tax rate should be and why?
So I want to mention something that I forgot to say in the first answer first. It just so happens that the U.S. Senator that had the most to do with pulling back Glass-Steagall was Phil Gramm. It just so happens that Phil Gramm's chief of staff at the time was Pete Olson. Just a little nugget for you guys. Okay, so we saw in this last year, late last year, a tax cut bill, that essentially robs the U.S. coffers of appropriations that we will need, revenue that we will need to do some of the most basic things that government is supposed to do. That tax bill, in effect, has now reinstated a corporate tax rate that is far excessive. And there is no indication that when we cut tax to corporations, that money ever comes back in any meaningful way to working class families. In fact, we see more of the same. We see less investment in people and more third homes and fourth homes and yachts, quite frankly. Obviously, we went in the wrong direction then. We will have to pull that back. And I'm convinced and I'm confident that with a new U.S. Congress in 2019, being sworn in 2019, and not having Paul Ryan as Speaker of the House anymore, and perhaps even having a new U.S. Senate in 2019 as well, I am confident that there will be enough progressives elected in this cycle that will help to pull back on the tax cuts that were implemented last year and make the tax rate closer to what it was before the tax cuts went into place. And that's what we need to do. We went in the wrong direction, and we need to pull back and begin working in a way to make taxes more progressive so that they benefit working class families and not corporations.
Meghan, in your answer on teacher benefits, you indicated that teachers should be able to choose whether or not to replace their pensions with defined contribution plans. Is there any realistic scenario where you think teachers would willingly choose a defined contribution plan like a 401k?
There are quite a few benefits to a defined contribution plan over a traditional pension for some people. And I'm going to stand by my answer that that's not my decision as a legislator to make. If the teachers' unions as a whole make that decision to switch to defined contribution plans, that's their decision. What I know is that the state of Texas has promised them a pension program, and we're not living up to our obligations.
Dylan, when we asked what sources your campaign would not be taking money from, you answered, quote, for-profit single donors, unquote. Would that include corporate PACs, and what are your views on limiting money in politics?
Yes, it would include corporate PACs. I think it's really important, especially in Texas, for people to be transparent and to people that want to step up and represent people, right? And as far as I'm concerned, corporations are not people. Now, as far as my views on money in politics, I think, like I said, this is my first time running politics, and I've seen so many things that I never expected to see. And I would say number one is how much money it takes to just get your foot, like, in the playing field, you know? Like, it's like someone saying, hey, come play kickball with us. And you're like, okay. And you have to pay $750 to drive to the field. And then you have to pay another $1,000 to be able to know the names of all of your teammates. This is what's going on. And so I think that there's a lot of barriers that prohibit people from getting involved in politics. And it's not okay. It's not right. It's not how our government is based. The power is in the people. The power is to your average, Joe Bag of Donuts and everybody getting involved in the system. Because once you see what it takes to start running, you're going to want to get involved. And you're going to want to make change because you meet all of these awesome people that want the same things. And you're like, hey, I live down the street from you, and you believe the same things that I do, that we can have an equitable future, and that we can have different faiths, and we can agree that the state should take care of its students. Yes, I think that there's a problem with money in politics, especially in Texas. And let's try to make reform and to change things. And everybody get involved. Take a step in. Show up more. Bring people with you. You're here. You're involved. Bring someone with you who's not. Let's recruit a little bit.
Adrienne, regarding decriminalization of marijuana, you indicated that you would put it on the ballot and let the voters decide. Do you feel that there are any social and economic benefits to decriminalizing marijuana?
There is definitely economic benefits. If you look at the different companies that have gotten involved in the cannabis economic commerce, they're becoming billionaires. When we have rural areas such as these in southern Brazoria County and they became cannabis farms, they would become billionaires. Buy that land now, because I believe Texas is going to move toward that. I was talking to a supporter. He's in his 70s. His very first question to me was, would you vote to legalize cannabis? And it surprised me because you're thinking maybe that that's a young person's question, but it's not. I get more of that from seniors. And I said, sir, absolutely. And if there are others in Congress who are against that, then I would say, put it to the vote. Let the people decide. So I think there's a social part of it for those who need it for medicine purposes. I think anyone that's in prison or in jail because of marijuana possession should be let go. And that we should also...
Steve, you agreed with our position on protecting America's financial safety net. Can you tell us how you would like to see Social Security funded as payments into the program become insufficient to see the remaining baby boomers through their retirement?
That is a really, really good question. Particularly, I'm not quite as young as Dylan, but I am young-ish. But particularly as we look at Generation X on back and what types of safety net programs will be available for us when we come into retirement age. I don't believe that the problem is a entitlement problem. I think it's a revenue problem. And I've stated that pretty consistently, both at the state level and at the federal level, that when Republicans get in office, they want to starve the government. And they do it intentionally, as a way of deconstructing government. We have to pursue revenue sources that are going to allow to stabilize Social Security so that we have access to it moving forward. And we can do that. I think that some of the ideas that have already been presented help to get us in that direction. Whether that is how we tax those risky trades on Wall Street, or quite frankly, how we find other ways to tax corporations in a way that helps to provide for the security of our future. I think that's what civilized countries are supposed to do. I think that we have a responsibility to ourselves. We have a responsibility to the most vulnerable amongst us to protect them in their time of need. And we will all, at some point, if we are so blessed, to find ourselves in a time of need as well. So this Congress that I hope to join in 2019 has to be a Congress that is forward-thinking, that has a long-term vision, and that can identify revenue sources to protect Social Security moving forward. Thank you.
Meghan, in your answer on the minimum wage, you indicated that you would fight for $15 if a viable incremental approach is offered, but also said that you have not seen a clear and reasonable pathway to get there. Some U.S. cities have already set the minimum wage at $15 an hour, including Seattle, Syracuse, and San Marcos, Texas. Others have passed laws to reach it within the next few years, including Los Angeles, New York, and Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, and the entire state of California. Would you support forming a commission in the Texas House to look at the methodology used by these pre-named sources and develop a plan to get to a $15 minimum wage in Texas as quickly as possible?
Absolutely. Those of you who are looking at my answer, I did say that I do support $15 an hour. I've actually testified for legislation to get us to 12. I have not seen legislation introduced in state Texas at a state level that gets us to $15 an hour with a reasonable incremental adjustment. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a pathway. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. I would be more than happy. I'm actually working with the AFL-CIO just to tweak that legislation, because the legislation that is out there has too big an incremental jump on the first jump. But we certainly have a pathway to get there in the next 10 years, and I would be more than happy to look at that. I'm looking at Seattle, I'm looking at San Marcos, I'm looking at what a lot of those other states have done. Texas has the lowest minimum wage in the country, and that definitely needs to change.
Thank you. Dylan, you stated that, if elected, I will call for a deep audit of all charter school programs. Would this be strictly a financial audit? And would you work to change the way charter schools are managed, or simply work to eliminate them?
Okay, so first, we definitely need a deep audit of the charter school program. Now, I know I'm young, and I am young, but one thing that I am is I eat history. I've just eaten it. And so I remember when I was younger hearing about charter schools and a lot of malpractice that was happening in the Houston area. Like there was one charter school where the kids were just going on field trips every day because they didn't have any staff, but they were still collecting money from the government. So we have an issue with charter schools, and one of the largest problems that I have with charter schools is the fact that it's funneling money away from public education when the Texas Constitution calls for providing a public education, a free public education to every student. And we have the infrastructure to do it. And we need to repair it so we can maintain it, so we can stand by our Texas Constitution. When it comes to the audit, I would definitely a financial audit. We need an audit of the criteria and the curriculum that's going on in the schools. It's not accessible. I personally, my parents put me in a Christian private school when I was in grade school, and then I jumped to public school when I was in third grade. So I know what it's like when you go through the different programs at the different schools, and I've spoken with them extensively about why they made those decisions. And they had their own reasons. But when it comes to charter schools, we need a deep audit of financial, we need a deep audit of curriculum. And then from there, we can make the appropriate decisions that we need to as citizens of the state of Texas, as residents of the state of Texas, and as lawmakers in the House, right? So once we see what we need to get this information so we can make informed decisions. Because without this being analyzed, we can speculate on what we want, and we can all kind of have a good guess of where it needs to go, but we need this to happen because we don't have another 10 years, we don't have another 20 years to boost Texas up from being the lowest in its education system. And charter schools is the main reason why.
Adrienne, you told us you would vote against unnecessary wars. What in your mind would determine that war was unnecessary, and can you give any recent examples?
I can't think of any necessary war that I can just give. When I think of the wars that we were involved in, when we went to Iraq, it was because of, who remembers, oil or missiles, what were they doing toward us? And then mass destruction. Yeah, there we go. Weapons of mass destruction. And then we knew there was no such thing, but yet we sent our sons there, our daughters there to fight in a war that was made up. And those who worked for Halliburton made a lot of money off of those wars. And all those wars cost American lives. Any of those kind of wars, unless they are in America, in our backyard, to me they're necessary. We're over in other countries trying to tell them what to do when we are not even taking care of America's own. And so I call it unnecessary. I will not vote to send someone else's son to die, or someone else's daughter to die, or to come back home, because we know what happens with veterans when they come back home. We don't take care of them. They're homeless. They don't get proper access to health care. So, and it's all because it was all unnecessary. So I think they all were.
Steve, in supporting the increase in the minimum wage to $15 per hour, would you favor an immediate increase to that amount or an incremental increase? And if incremental, how long would it take to reach 15?
So if I'm not mistaken, HR 15 is an incremental path to $15. And I believe it's either 5 to 7 years. I'm not exactly sure which one, but it is it's 7. It is an incremental every year, and that another dollar or so is added to the minimum wage. And I would support HR 15. I think HR 15 has the support of enough progressives in Congress. Hopefully when we take back the House, we will be able to pass that legislation. But I would really support HR 15.
Meghan, in your answer on the death penalty, you said, quote, "We need real criminal justice reform before we move forward with any further executions," unquote. Does that mean that you would support keeping the death penalty after specific reforms are made, and what reforms would be required?
I'm not a fan of the death penalty. Unfortunately, I think we've had too many cases where we have executed a prisoner and then they were exonerated after the fact. Economically, it doesn't make sense. It actually costs more to execute to somebody than to keep them for life. However, at the same time, I look at there are some criminals who have lost that right to continue existing in our society at all. And so, I'm sorry, what was the question one more time? Oh yeah, well, but I do, and I think that before we even reconsider the death penalty, that we need to look at criminal justice reform as a whole. Because, like I said, we have people who are being given the death penalty who were later exonerated because they didn't go through the system. The system, unfortunately, sometimes is unfair.
Thank you. Dylan, in your answer on immigration, you mentioned numerous problems with the current system, including broken families, citizenship delays, risk to officers, and dehumanization. What actions would you recommend to improve the system?
So step one is we need to, unlike audits, we need to audit the immigration system. We need to know where it's broken. I've had friends that, well, one of my best friends, they're a Chilean couple. They met, one was a U.S. citizen, the other one was a resident of Chile. They moved here, and it took him 5 years after they were married to get his citizenship. That's ridiculous, and that's best case scenario because they had the money for a lawyer. So step one, we need to find out where things are broken so that we can address them properly. Secondly, I think that, so the steps that we can take to repair them, I would say that you have to know where it's broken in order to be able to repair it. But I mean, there's some places that have better access to citizenship and immigration reform because they're offering the people that are contributing to their society sanctuary and a place to live. If we're about to cut off our nose to spite our face by kicking out so many skilled laborers in the farming industry. I was reading something today about how 45% of the knowledge of industrial farmers in America is in the hands of immigrants who are second, third generation farmers who have been passed the information on how to run the farm from their parents. So we definitely need to make sure that that is happening. And then, I mean, just while we're talking on it, and it's an important thing, I think that, when we're pushing for such horrible immigration practices, you're putting police lives at risk. When you have police officers that are supposed to be a reflection of the communities that they're served, and you're sending them in to terrorize families, enforcing a federal regulation that's not protected by their districts or their cities, you're putting them at risk. Nobody wants to be told what to do or when to leave, and we need to make sure that that's in the hands of our lawmakers with common sense immigration reform.
All right, for your last question. Adrienne, in the questionnaire, you mentioned removing corporate funding from political campaigns. Would you also curtail the ability of wealthy individuals to have an outsized influence in the campaigns? And how would you do that?
One thing is to change Citizens United. And we have the funneling of money through super PACs. When you're running a grassroots campaign like we're running, we will not compete with Republicans with the money because they're already millions ahead of us, and they would have a crowd like this, no disrespect, but they have a crowd like this where they raise $1 million. So they can raise money like that, and we can't. We don't, because we're not taking all this corporate money. But one thing that we find is not only is corporate money, but you have all the lobbyists that are employed and that are coming against and wielding power over legislators. And so one of my heroes, I want to say, in the political environment is Shirley Chisholm. And so we say, I will be unbought and I will be unbossed. So when I go sit with Steve in 2019, because I like how he said that, I go owing you, owing FJ a phone call, owing Scott a phone call, but not owing favors because you gave me money. And that's why we can't get anything done in Congress right now. It's because of money, favors, special interest, because my buddy is a billionaire and he can finance my campaign, so I'm gonna give him everything he needs, tax cuts, whatever he needs to help him out instead of helping the people. So until we get money out of politics and really have candidates that are progressive, that are running on the values for the people, we'll be in trouble. So we gotta take money out.
Steve, in your questionnaire, you point out that you support H.R. 676 and that you have been an advocate for Medicare for All. Can you share specifics on how you see such a plan being implemented and what goals you would have for it?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why it was important for you, me, Laura, everyone who came together to throw the Medicare for All rally in Sugar Land last summer was because, one, I don't like the way Democrats have been able to frame and defend the ACA. I think we did a poor job of doing so. Yep. The original ACA had a public option in the bill. And when they dropped that out, we somehow forgot that public option was still an option. And we allow Republicans to run further down the rabbit hole to the right on healthcare reform, as opposed to making healthcare reform more progressive. And so that attempt to raise awareness of Medicare for All was an attempt to make sure that folks knew that we're going in the wrong direction, and that no system that is built off of profits will ever fully cover everybody. If you even look at the ACA, there were about 20 million people still who didn't have health insurance, right? Even with the ACA. So that didn't solve every problem. Because what we come to find is that whenever there's a profit motive in healthcare, you're going to find the sick, the elderly, and the poor will always be deemed unprofitable. Okay? And we cannot allow profit-driven motives to determine who gets covered and who doesn't, who can afford coverage and who doesn't. So just like every other industrialized nation in the world that has a single-payer system, that has found a way to make their system more efficient and make their outcomes better. That's the key to this, is that we are doing the right thing and we're doing it in a more efficient way. We have a system today that costs the most and the outcomes are the poorest in the world globally. There is no way that anyone can defend that moving forward. The good news is that this country is moving in towards Medicare for All and supporting single payer as a whole. And I think we can carry that momentum forward and get a bill passed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Meghan, you do not support automatic voter registration and state that registration should be a choice. is there a downside that you see for people to be registered that would outweigh the removal of the need to register as a barrier to voting?
I don't necessarily see a downside. I just think that just like voting is an action. It is something that you have to do. I think that registration should be a choice. I don't think that should be something that is forced on anybody. I don't necessarily see a downside to it. I just don't see a whole lot of upside. I think that in order for our elected body to be informed and engaged, that they have to literally be engaged. I think we need to make voter registration easier. I am very disappointed in the fact that we don't have online voter registration in Texas. I think that we are purging our voter rolls way too frequently, and I've seen that quite a bit in my district with people who were devastated by Harvey, have been purged from the voter rolls because they couldn't receive their voter registration card. So I don't necessarily see a downside to automatic voter registration. I just think that what we want is we want people who are actively involved and engaged, and that small piece of paper or having them check that box when they go get their identification, or being able to do it online, or just being more proactive in getting our principals to register our students when they turn 18 in high school would be a great step to do that. But I think that that should be a choice that people make to be actively involved and engaged.
Thank you. And Dylan, you get the honor of having the last one. In your answer on the criminal justice reform, you indicated that private prisons and corporate spending of the taxpayers' money were key issues. Other than eliminating those, what steps would you like to take to address unfairness in the system?
With private prisons or with the justice system as a whole? Or?
Criminal justice reform, you indicated that private prisons and corporate spending of the taxpayers' money were key issues. Other than eliminating those, what steps would you like to take to address unfairness in the system?
Okay. I think that first is a lot more transparency. I think that when it comes to talking about criminal justice reform issues, there's a lot of secrecy. Who are the people that are influencing these prisons? Who are the people that are benefiting from it? Who are the ones who are influencing the laws that are being pushed? These are all the questions that we need to know so we can start seeking the reform that we need in order to have a more fair, just, and decent justice system in the state of Texas. So I think that to start, we have to find where the money is being hemorrhaged out of the system that is equated to the amount of people that are going into it. We have a hole in the bucket, and once we plug the leak, we can start finding out where things need to go as opposed to where they're going. So I have to look at this microphone. So I think that everybody should be able to access the information as to how these prisons are being funded and the ratio of people going into the systems. We've seen in other areas in this nation, we see it in other areas around the world, that public prisons and public jails have a better system for the residents there. They have lower rates of violence, they have higher levels of rehabilitation, and all of those things to me sound amazing when you're looking at the residents of the state of Texas. I want strong schools. You need to have people that aren't going to be going into the corrections facilities. If you want good education, a higher education, you need people that are invested in their lives and not getting put into private prisons and being treated like human cattle in this system that are making other people profit. I think everything comes down to human decency, and when we treat people like people and we treat the institutions that we put them in as needing decency and human rights, then we can fix the problems, and one of them is private prisons.
Okay, that concludes the question part of the evening. We're now going to have concluding remarks, and our idea was to reverse the order, which means we'll start with Dylan this time. We got 5 minutes, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to apologize for the world's worst PA system. It's brand new, we've never used it before, so sorry about that. But hopefully we can muddle through. Dylan, you've got 5 minutes.
I'm really thankful for everybody who's here tonight.
That might work if it's on. Because, of course, step 1 is becoming aware, and step 2 is becoming involved. And all of us have unique stories that bring us here, and we definitely have unique stories that bring us here to this place. Our Revolution is an amazing organization that's doing wonderful work. I filled out a lot of these little papers that ask me who I am, what I'm doing, and why I'm doing it. And this is the one it was yes and straight down. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to see, and the changes that I want to help make. And these are the things I think we can all stand behind. And because if you're here, you have the same sense of equity that you want to see in the state. You have the same sense of decency that you think all people deserve. And there's this piece of human that you have that a lot of people don't. Because when it comes down to who you are and what you want to represent, that's what you omit out into our society. And not everybody has that. Because there are a lot of people that have interests that aren't their own. There are a lot of people that go to places and they're not there representing themselves. And when you do that, you're not getting a true connection. You're not getting you're not focused. And so I want to thank everybody here for being focused, for wanting to create change, for wanting to be a part of it. Because y'all all know that when we make those decisions and put in the work, we can have a stronger Texas together. And that's what I want, is a stronger Texas together. We don't need to divide each other further. And you know, it can all be here or there. There are a lot of people that are very passionate about why they're here, and you know, it can do what it is. But let me tell you, I stand for a $15 minimum wage now. I think that Texas has the economy. I think that we have the place for it. And I don't want to have to wait another 20 years. I've been in the work field for 16 years. And to think that it's gone from, I've been making $5.50, and now the minimum wage is $7.50, and I've never made over $20 an hour. I worked in skilled trades, and when I started as a plumber, the take home was $15 an hour. I don't know what it's like to make more than $40,000 a year. And that's fine. Because I've had a lot of hardships that a lot of other people have. I've been discriminated against and kicked out of a union. I had my car repossessed. I had to pick myself up on my bootstraps. And I'll do it again. And I'll do it again. And I'll do it again. And I'll do it here in Texas. Because this is my home. I'm a second generation Mexican Texan on my mom's side. And I'm a first generation Texan on my dad's side. He got here as soon as he could from Missouri. And I know that we are family. We create our families. A lot of us that live in Brazoria County didn't start there. A lot of us travel for work. A lot of us get there for other reasons. Some of us wanted a home that was affordable in a good school district for our families and for our kids. Maybe we wanted to be near other people in our families. But whatever brought us here, we all are experiencing the same things. We see people that don't represent us, that don't look like us, making laws, that don't believe the way we do, that don't want people treated the same way that we think they should. And we don't want to see that anymore. We don't want that for our children. I don't want that in the 30 years when I'm going to be looking towards retirement. And I most certainly don't want that for my parents, who are looking towards Social Security in the next 4 years. I want to ensure that my 3 principles are taken care of. I want to maintain and not included is the competitive edge in the House. We need to make sure that we keep that competitive House. Bills are passed in the Senate, bills die in the House. And that's what's kept Texas the place it has for the past about 25 years. But I want to ensure that voters' rights are taken care of. We need same-day voter registration, we need automatic voter registration, and we need realistic ID laws. We need education reform. We need to ensure that teachers have their pensions. We need to ensure that standardized testing is audited and potentially taken out of schools. And we need to ensure that charter schools aren't funneling money away from the public education system. And we need to expand Medicaid in the state of Texas. We need to ensure that the elderly, the disabled, the low-income families are taken care of in this state. Because you shouldn't have to make $100,000 a year to have competitive, good health care.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, tonight you've heard a lot about some opinions that we might differ on from all of us. But I really want to take it back to the values that every single one of us share. Every single one of us in this room wants a good quality education for every child in Texas. And right now, Texas ranks 43rd in educational quality. We rank 47th in educational funding per base rate of the student. That is something that it goes hand in hand. The state needs to start kicking in a little bit more money, and that's why I started getting involved in public education, was to advocate for that funding so that we have those programs. We stopped taking care of our teachers. Teachers in Texas, you can either have your Texas retirement system, your system pension, and then we take away your Social Security. So teachers have very little incentive to stay in the profession. A lot of teachers have very little incentive to enter a profession if it happens to be a second career for them. That's something that 35 other states have taken care of, and Texas hasn't. That's something that we need to work at a federal level and as a state level. We've talked a lot about school vouchers. I've been a very vocal opponent of school vouchers for years. I've met with my senators, I've testified in the state legislature against them because I want to make sure that public education dollars are going into public schools, not privately run organizations. Healthcare is a basic human right. Nobody should be able to have to make a choice between making a car payment and buying medication. No one should have to get a second mortgage on their home or potentially lose their home because they got an illness and they couldn't afford to go seek medical care. We talked a lot about expanding Medicaid. The state has refused to do it. My opponent actually likes to brag about sponsoring the bill for it, but that was literally his obligation because he was chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. He never fought for it, even though there was a possibility that 2 of the hospitals that serve as members of our district would have closed if the state didn't expand Medicaid. They had been in the black for decades, or in the red for decades, and Medicaid expansion would have put them in the black. The only thing that kept those hospitals open happened to be passage of the ACA. Those are my neighbors who would have had to drive half an hour longer to get emergency medical care when they need it. We have a lot of, we've had attacks on women's rights for, I don't know, how long has Texas been around? For quite a few decades. So we need people that are going to represent those core values of taking care of our children, taking care of our families, taking care of our workers, putting, things into our economy that are actually going to benefit everybody. And that's what I want to do. So let's take it back to those core beliefs of actually moving forward and moving all of Texas forward, regardless of your gender or your sexual orientation or your race. Because every single one of us deserves an opportunity. And right now, Texas isn't helping too much with that. So we need to make some serious changes, and we need to elect people who share those core beliefs of moving forward.
Stand up since I have 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm not going to take the whole 5 minutes. I'm going to yield some more time back. Claim your time a little later. First off, let me thank you for inviting me to be a part of this panel. It means a lot that I was invited back to answer some of the questions and to hopefully earn your endorsement. And let me also say that I don't believe that this was my best performance, and I do apologize for that. But I ask that if you stand with me, if you support me, that together we can turn District 22. There are more people like us in District 22 than what the common belief is, right? In District 22, the poverty rate has increased by 120% since 2000. That's the 3rd fastest growth of poverty in the entire state. Of all the districts in the state, this one's growing the 3rd fastest in terms of poverty. We have a lack of transit to connect poor people to the resources that they need. We need a congressman who understands that, who sees that, who can connect the need to the services. That's what a congressman is supposed to do at home. I truly believe that as an extension of public transit, that climate change is really a civil rights issue. I truly believe that if we can train people to get into the fields of clean energy, the fields that I work in right now, I have a very successful business right now developing clean energy projects. If we can move people into those fields, we will see that clean energy is today's version of the Industrial Revolution, which was that day's version of the Stone Age or other revolutions. This is a revolution that's happening right now in our energy, in our economy. And we have the potential, being in the energy capital of the world, to transform what that looks like. And 22 can be the catalyst for that type of change. We have some 18,000 kids in this district who depend on CHIP. While our congressman was playing games with CHIP and making that into a political tool, these kids were suffering. And most of these families were suffering during the holiday season of all times, not knowing whether or not CHIP was going to be restored and reauthorized in time for them. We have real needs, and we have a message, we have the values that I firmly believe will connect with the majority of the people in this district. But what it's going to take for us to win is going to do what, like my friend Keith Ellison said when he ran for DNC chair. We have to knock on every single door. We have to engage every single person. We have to have a real conversation with real people again and connect with them and their needs and listen to them. Because we will find that in their hopes and in their dreams are the solutions that we talked about tonight. And maybe they don't know that. Maybe they're voting against their own interests. And I would venture to say that of the 40,000 people who depend on the ACA right now in the district, not all of them are Democrats or progressives. There are a lot of Republicans in that group who are voting against their own interests. The families who depend on CHIP aren't all Democrats, right? There are people who are voting against their own districts, their own interests. And so we have an obligation and we have an opportunity, equally, to turn this around. And I truly believe that I am the candidate to help to do that in 22, but I know I can't do that without Our Revolution supporting me and standing with me every step of the way. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity to stand before you and make my case and ask for your support. And if you give me your support, I promise you I will not let you down. And together we will celebrate in November that we had turned Tom DeLay's old district into a progressive seat again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be able to sit and think about answers to questions that I don't remember. Felt like a midterm or final exam, one of those. It is really good to be a progressive. I've been a progressive all my life. I'm an African American. African Americans know progressivism because we've had to fight all of our lives. We had to fight for human rights. We had to fight for equal rights. We've had to fight for good jobs. We've had to fight to live in neighborhoods that we could afford, but they didn't want us in there. So I've always known progressivism. I think one of the best things that 45 has brought to us is movement of people, organizations that are coming together because we realize he has attacked every marginalized community in this country. And if we cannot come together in 2018 and fight against that kind of hatred, we're in trouble. If we can't come together as progressives and say, you know what, this is a human rights issue. If we cannot come together and fight for that, we're in trouble. If we don't come out in mass forces in 2018 and take back the House, take back the Senate, take back the state legislature, we're in trouble. It's really serious, and it's not a game. We just need folks to realize that we want what we want. We want our voices heard. And we've got the people that can do it. That's what's so beautiful about it. I would love to go in Steve's office and say, Steve, what does this mean? And I know he would explain it to me, and then I can go and fight for it. I already know that because I know different strengths, and we go as a coalition. And when you have a coalition, you go and already join and united together, then we're going to fight for this. We're going to fight for Medicare for all. I don't care what they say in the House. We're going to fight for it. We're going to stand up for minimum wage. We're going to fight for it. I know what it's like for income inequality because I'm a female. And I was a manager, and the men made more than me. We did the same job. And I probably worked harder than they did because I was a woman, and I was a black woman on top of that. I know what that feels like, to be discriminated against. We're going to fight for those things. We're not just sitting here saying this. We're going to fight for it. You will see me fighting. I will fight all day long because of what we want and what we need to make our country better for our children and our children's children. It's not just about us. Go vote for your children is what I tell them. Vote for the children you don't even have, because you need to make America better for them. Because if we let this current administration do what they want to do, then we know we're in trouble. We're not going to allow that to happen. And that's the beauty of what 45 is bringing to our country. They don't see it, but we do. So thank you so much. I ask for your vote. I ask for your endorsement so that I can go to Texas 14, Southern Missouri County, Galveston County, and Jefferson County and work with the people. That we have government that we can be proud of. I want someone to say, that's my congresswoman, because they're proud of you. And they're not running from you and just angry all the time because you're not doing anything to help them. And you won't have a town hall because you're scared to talk to them. So we're going to fight for you. So thank you for the opportunity to fight for you. Adrienne Bell, I need your vote for Texas District 14 or for Our Revolution. I'm endorsed by AFL-CIO and some others. I can't remember. Everybody else.
Okay, everybody, I'd just like to remind you that if you have seen some candidates that you really like here tonight, they can use your assistance. Block walking, phone banking, donations, I'm sure would be greatly appreciated. Our Revolution is not going to coordinate that because we are not allowed to do that, but by all means, get on their website, sign up for their campaigns, and they will tell you what to do. The other thing that I just wanted to say was that those of us who have worked on campaigns, we know that it's an incredibly busy schedule. And these 4 wonderful people have taken time out of that schedule to be with us tonight, and I'd like to give them a big round of applause. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take about 15 minutes. Feel free to say hello to the candidates, mingle, pay your checks, and also, if you're an Our Revolution voter, fill out your ballot. We're going to be collecting those. Donations to Our Revolution are gratefully accepted. Doug also wanted me to remind you guys that this is the last year for straight ticket voting, which is very important for Democrats. So that's it. Please fill out those ballots, and thanks for everything.